Happy New Year, guys! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kyle Kedrick, and in this channel I find anything and everything filmmaking. Now that we all got all that jizz and whatnot out of the system, let's go ahead and just address the fact that it's a new year. It's a brand new year. We're in the roaring 20s now. We're back in the 20s, I guess. Or I guess for our generation it'd be the Yeeting 20s. Not proud of that title, but I made that and it's so cringe that it round robins back to funny, hopefully. But today, from the title as you notice, we're doing the top 10 best movies of the decade. So there's gotta be a couple things we talk about before I start. First thing is the fact that we're gonna have 2 movies per year. So technically it's the top 20 movies of the year, but it's because there's 2 categories. And those 2 categories are going to be the most cinematic thing I saw that year that made me grow film organs, and it just kind of made me get a film orgasm, I guess. And the second category is going to be the one that just touched me right here. Those sentimental ones that just kind of pulled my heartstrings and made me just feel so many different things in that year, and it made me develop as a person. So let's go ahead and get started. So 2010, the best movie for me that came out that year is Inception and How to Train Your Dragon. Now the reason for Inception is because it kind of just relit the filmmaker's love for me during that year, because there was like a weird lapse between 2007 to 2010 that just kind of made it feel hollow for a while until this movie came out and relit that flame. Now for How to Train Your Dragon though, the reason why I love that one so much is due to the fact that I had a very hard time during my sophomore year. I was not going through the best of times in high school, and it was due to parental reasons, and that one just kind of really called to me. With me and my father's relationship were great now, but during that time it helped a lot during that certain time. Now for 2011, my favorite 2 films during that time is gonna be Hugo and Adventures of Tintin. Now for Hugo, the reason for that is because it kind of just was a love letter to all filmmakers and just film history in general. It kind of just made you realize to appreciate older films within a new film, and it was beautifully just made. I have a weakness for that movie for that reason alone. But for Adventures of Tintin, it's because it's directed by my favorite director, Steven Spielberg himself, and it's one of his best, in my opinion, animated films that he's ever made. And the reason it kind of just touched me is because it had that adventure aspect that a lot of movies don't tend to do anymore. Adventure movies these days are very high paced, and in this one it is high paced, but there's an emotional bearing to it. He knows how to get that towards the audience, and it's great. Now for 2012, this is gonna be a very biased year for me because both of them are actually gonna be very emotional, and instead of being cinematic. And there's a bunch of better cinematically made movies during that time, but I just simply couldn't choose any of those because these 2 they hit me so hard. The first one's going to be The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and the second one's going to be Amazing Spider-Man. Now the reason for Perks of Being a Wallflower is because it was a very simply and cheap made movie, but it somehow still made you feel for every single character. And through adolescence, during that time of high school and then hormones and all that, it was just super relatable. It's just one of the most relatable movies you'll ever really see. Now for Amazing Spider-Man, this is gonna be a very biased thing because Spider-Man is my favorite all-time superhero. He's kind of helped me throughout my whole life. And as the underdog type of character, Andrew Garfield pulls that off. And yes, he's overly attractive as Peter Parker, but honestly, he's also a playboy inside of the comics. So people kind of get that stuff wrong. But at the same time, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but it hit me so much just because it's just such a high uplifting film, and it got me so motivated during a really, really dark time. Now 2013, this one's gonna be really fun. The best 2 movies that came out that year for me is going to be Wolf of Wall Street and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Now the reason why it's Wolf of Wall Street is because that movie is so good at satire. Not a lot of people really realize it's satire, but it is satire. It's beautiful and it's hilarious in that way, but it's still such a well shot movie. It's still really good, and the reason for that is because it's Martin Scorsese. He knows how to make a character piece. Examples of this is Goodfellas, it's gonna be The Raging Bull. He's been in the industry for so long and he understands film so much, and I know that I'm talking about this film so much, but Martin Scorsese is just one of my favorite directors of all time. Now The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, you're probably seeing the pattern of how much I love adventure movies, and this is a modern tale of an adventure movie. and you get to see this character grow from someone that's so introverted to someone that can just go for what he wants, and it's a beautiful way of seeing that. And the music that's in it, the shots that's in it, it's so good. Ben Stiller is one of the most giving people too, and during this movie he gave so much of his own money, his own production, just for the people, and it just touches me so much. I love it. So the best movies of 2014, that's going to be Interstellar and John Wick. The reason why it's going to be Interstellar is because I love the idea that a director will do as many movies as they can until they can get unlimited funding to get their perfect and most envisioned film that they have in their head that they want out there. And yes, not a lot of people besides filmmakers loved Interstellar, but the reason why it's so good to me is because he made his dream come true. That was his dream film. He made every single shot perfect in his own eyes. He even got physics scientists, people, things to go part of the CGI and just make it real, and it's just so good for that fact. And yes, there's a lot of memes about it, but in the same time, if you think about it as the fact that it's Nolan's perfect film for himself, I am proud of that for him. And for John Wick, it's gonna be for obvious reasons. One, Keanu Reeves, of course. And two, it's gonna be the fact that it was such a surprise film. The trailers didn't really show how good the movie was gonna be or what the movie is really gonna be about. Everyone just thought it was gonna be just another action film with Keanu Reeves or with just some like really big star, and it's just gonna just be that, and that's it. But it just shocked all of us because of all of the cinematography added up with the set design, added up with Keanu Reeves' acting chops of being the hardest working man in Hollywood, because he learned so much martial arts, so much gunplay, so much stunt play with cars. Like, one, I would never try to ride a car and go straight into the cliff or hitting something and then just drifting off to the side, and I wouldn't trust myself for that, but he got trained to do that. That is one of the coolest things to see in modern day film, due to the fact that not a lot of films are made with a lot of hard work put in mind with the story. And you could tell that in this movie, everyone's heart was just in it, and they were all passionate about it, especially with the passing of Keanu Reeves' wife. And rest in peace, of course. But you could tell that he was actually in pain during that time, and I'm happy for him for going past that with this movie. Wait up, bonus film. It's gonna be the fact that I love How to Train Your Dragon no matter what. So that's another sentimental one, and the second one is beautiful, but I can't mention it, so that's just an honorable mention, by the way. So, and in 2015, the best two movies that came out that year is gonna be Mad Max and Star Wars for me. And the reason why it's gonna be Mad Max is, again, the hard work that they put into that movie. Like, severe amounts of hard work. They put so much hard work that they made the guitar in that scene with the flames and everything. They made that a real practical effect because it actually worked. Like, who would need to make that work? You could just add that in post, but no. The amount of love and care for this movie is so good, and it's just so cool to see someone, again, another director, George Miller, to be able to make something that he's dreamed about in a higher stakes, higher budget, higher amounts of filmmaking knowledge in the industry, to be able to mix it all into his practical effect love. And I love practical effects so much. So the fact that they did all those stunts, all those angles, all those cars that just were built for real, that they worked, it's amazing. I don't even get to say it, because honestly, so many video essays have this movie described in so many different ways, so go check those out. Now for Star Wars, this is gonna be very debatable now that, you know, the last one for the Skywalker saga came out. I don't know about my opinions about that just yet, but Force Awakens for me it just relit another love for mine, and I already loved the OG Star Wars series, and the prequels I appreciate, but I get that it's a rehash of A New Hope, but in the same time, it gave me like hope that there would be pun, hope that there would be a good Star Wars series throughout the generations, for the new generation anyway. and we'll talk about the rest later for that. Now, 2016, there's only gonna be one movie for this, and you know it, and you all agree, I bet. It's gonna be Batman vs Superman. Such a good movie. Am I okay? Sorry. No, the two movies I want to talk about in this whole series is gonna be Arrival and Rogue One. Now for Arrival, there's been a long time where I haven't seen anything super great editing wise. Well, there's great editing, but there's also just like an edited movie that changes the time lapses, kind of like Pulp Fiction or Memento, where it kind of makes you think more. And this kind of does that. I can't say any more or else it's gonna be spoilers, but you should really check this out. It made me just love so much of every single moral that it has to say. Now for Rogue One, and I can only say one thing about this. Darth Vader has never been shown to be the most badass person except in the extended universe, really, because his fighting has never been really shown until Rogue One. And that ending gives me chills every time. I want to be the guy that gets launched up into the ceiling and gets cut in half right there. That was such a good scene, and that scene alone made that movie for me. So for 2017, the best movies of that year for me is Murder in Orient Express and also Blade Runner. Now the reason why Blade Runner's in there is because we're not supposed to even have that movie. They worked so much to give us a sequel that didn't even need to happen. And somehow they just made it feel like Blade Runner still with modern day CGI and practical effects. Again, practical effects, the love. But it didn't feel like just another sequel like every other sequel these days where it's just a continuation. It's more of another story within the Blade Runner universe, and it does continue a lot of things with the main character of the last one, but in the same time it's also something more. And I can't say any more than that because you have to check it out for yourself because of the fact that we're not supposed to have this movie. I can't specify that enough. Now, Murder in Orient Express. The reason why I love this movie so much is because it felt so new, but classic. It had the modern taste of a modern film that we have these days, but it used Alfred Hitchcockian storytelling where it has his shots and his similarities of plot devices, and I just love that because we don't really get to see that often these days. Now, a couple honorable mentions for 2017. I could not mention these. I know, double negative, whatever. But the reason for that is because superhero movies for me felt bland for a while, and these ones just were all in one year and they struck so much gold. Like, they're beautiful. And they're going to be Logan, Wonder Woman, and Thor Ragnarok. And the reasons for all of those, they all three have amazing video essays online, so you should go check those out as well. I can't say any more of those things because of just how much I love them. We're nearing the end of this list, and now we're in 2018. The best two movies of that year has to be Spider-Verse, and it's going to be Ready Player One. Now the reason for Spider-Verse is because that movie, again, all the hard work, all the hand-drawn and CGI mixed into one. You freeze that movie for 1 second, you're just like, well, that's just a wall art that I want in my wall forever. And it gave a feeling that Spider-Man movies don't usually give, and it's the fact that Spider-Man's the everyman of the Marvel Universe. He's the one that can be relatable to all, and I'm not talking about just Peter Parker or Miles Morales. I'm saying that anybody can be Spider-Man, and it's the reason why he's so good. You could put your shoes into his feet, or your feet into his shoes. I know that sounds, yeah, I can't even. That movie just dazed and confused me all the time, and it's a beautiful thing that we were able to get a good Sony Spider-Man movie that people cared. That year was great alone with the Spider-Man PS4 game, and that one, I know it's not a movie, but it's also amazing. Like, the fact that we get an 8-year experienced Spider-Man dealing with real world stuff that we ourselves are going through. Again, he's the most relatable superhero. And for Ready Player One, again, and for Ready Player One, my love for that movie is the fact that Spielberg got to use all his IPs and everyone else's IPs, because no one's gonna say no to Spielberg, and got to put it all into one movie. I love the DeLorean, I love Iron Giant, even though they made him into a weapon. That's a bit odd, but yeah. But in the same time, that movie was just again a love letter to all of us. It had The Shining with real film grain added to a CGI movie. Like, Spielberg, stop. We're in 2019 now, and this is the last part of the list. So it's gonna be very difficult, and it's gonna be very weird, especially since 1917 is a limited release until January for me. So I can't really add that since I haven't seen it yet, but there's gonna be a couple honorable mentions before I get started. Now, the honorable mentions has to be Endgame for the fact that they were able to end something with such satisfaction for everybody. That's just great alone. John Wick 3 and How to Train Your Dragon 3. But the two best movies of this year in my opinion is Ad Astra and The Irishman. Now for Ad Astra, this one's actually the sentimental one because it's a very anti-masculine movie, and I've never been, well, told that I'm the most masculine type of guy. And it kind of shows the weaknesses and the pitfalls of trying to be overly stoic and overly non-emotional as a guy in this movie, and a lot of people kind of brushed over that, and it's a really great character piece of a movie going through his mental troubles, and I just love that because they put that in space, like just a weird setting if you think about it, because it would be easier to do it in a real life scenario, but they were able to do it with a space somewhat adventure but mostly a character driven movie. And The Irishman, the reason why this is so great is because it kind of just like circulates everything that Scorsese has made, where it's all like hyping up a very bad person and then showing them die, or other things that happens to those characters, but instead it kind of shows you that horrible person, but then them trying to mourn for it, but they can't go back on their decisions that they already have made in their life. It makes you question that type of stuff yourself, and it's so good for that alone. Scorsese just knows how to do that so well with all his characters, but in this so much more, because now he feels sorry and you get to see his family's struggles with this, and his careers as a gangster in the olden times kind of going through the same thing. And that was my favorite movies of the decade. It's insane that we're in the 2020s right now. Like, just think about that. We're in the roaring 20s again. It's so weird. People are gonna say that we're living through the 20s like we say about the 20s back then in the 1920s. So it's just insane. But let me know if you guys agreed with my list down in the comments below. If you guys disagreed, let me know that too. Actually, in fact, just go ahead and put your guys' list of your guys' favorite movies of the whole entire decade. I would like to know what's different, what's similar. It'd be cool to have that discussion down there. But that ends this video, guys, so of course, dream on.